And now for something completely different, as Monty Python would probably say. This is obviously not anything like many of the photos I've been posting the past couple months. This is just a fun picture of my cousin's dog, Dashwood. And I really like this picture. I'm super happy with how it turned out, and I just wanted to use it as a photo here on Weekly 50 because I learned a lot and was able to put into practice a lot that I have learned when I took this shot. This is from a weekend, it's actually over Easter weekend trip that my wife and I and our kids met up with my cousin and her husband and their dog Dash, or Dashwood. I guess Dash is short for Dashwood, at a Airbnb in the middle of Iowa. And it was a super fun weekend. And part of what I like so much about this photo is that it tells a story. And when I look at this photo, I don't just see a dog with a Frisbee. It's a chewed up Frisbee, which clearly has been used. This disc has been well used over the months or years. And you can tell by how beat up it is, and the stickers all faded and torn off. So I don't just see that. I see a whole bunch of memories from that weekend. And even the sunlight in this photo, it's at an angle, and that implies that it's, that means that the sun is low on the horizon. So you can see the shadow is stretching off into the distance behind this dog. And that means the dog is running towards the shadow, and that wouldn't happen during midday or anytime between like 10 and 5 p.m. And so this shot is, even if you don't know anything about this location, you could tell it's either early in the morning or late in the day. And it happened to be early in the morning. And I think about my kids playing Frisbee with this dog. I think about the walks that we went on with my cousin and her husband and their dog, and the times we spent making food and playing card games, playing board games, and just spending time with family. And it was such a fun weekend. And that's what I think of when I see this picture. This one image of this dog and Frisbee sort of encapsulates so many things and brings back so many memories about that weekend. And at the end of the day, like, that's my favorite part about photography. And I don't mean to wax philosophical here, but it really is. All the close-up pictures of objects with cool lighting and all that, those are fun. And those are really cool experiences or really cool instances where I can learn a lot about photography. But at the end of the day, it's photos like this that tell a story, that bring back memories, they just mean the most to me. And they're always going to be on the top of my heap of favorite photos. I took this picture with kind of a different camera that you might expect. I used my Fuji X100F, and that is not at all well suited to action photos like this. The autofocus is not that great. It obviously doesn't zoom in. Like, there's a lot of reasons not to use that camera, but there are a lot of reasons to use that camera for a photo like this. It's a wider angle. It's got a 35 millimeter equivalent field of view, which is great for a shot like this. And the autofocus, while not great, is actually decent, especially if your subject is moving in a predictable manner, in this case from left to right. So what I did was I set the autofocus to I forget what the mode is called, but I basically used the entire middle chunk of the frame and set it to autofocus and then continue to autofocus once it has acquired focus. So one of my kids threw this Frisbee, and I positioned myself so that I knew the dog would be running past my right-hand side as it brought the Frisbee back to my son. And I locked focus in like the 2 or 3 seconds that it took to make this photo. I locked focus on the dog with my camera and then fired off like a 8 frames a second burst as it ran towards my son. And I had my son do that a couple times in a row. So I took, I don't know, several dozen shots. And this one happened to be the one that I liked the most. And a lot of them were actually in focus. I shot this at an aperture of f4, and that's just enough to give the subject all the sharpness I needed. Incidentally, is 1/1600th of a second, which is about right for capturing a super fast moving dog. So 1/1600th of a second, ISO 200 because there's plenty of light, and then f4, and that meant that the background was nice and blurry, and you can clearly separate the subject from the background. You can't. I know I sound like an old dude here, but you can't get this photo with a phone. At least not with a phone today. The portrait mode simply doesn't work for something like this. It's too subtle, it's too nuanced, it's too fast moving for a portrait mode photo on a phone to work. and you don't even get the subtle fall off in the depth of field. You might get some sort of blurry outline, but you would not get this photo with an iPhone or with any mobile phone, at least not today. And that was one of the, it's one of my favorite reasons for using this little Fuji, is like the absolutely amazing, stunning image quality that you get. Even the little twinkle in the dog's eye. I love so many things about this photo. So anyway, that is almost 6 minutes of audio about this photo. That's probably enough.